Next up, we have Yifat and Real Army Simulator. The game itself kind of is a very favorite topic of mine, and that's humor within games. It's something that's very least touched upon, but using humor in a subversive sort of way. And so I'll kind of let Yifat take it from here in terms of that.
Yes.
So, here you
Hello. I'm saying in advance I make really bad jokes. But I make a lot of jokes because it's a talk about humor. Okay, so I'm going to talk about subversive humor and the absurdity of real life experience. And this is the last time I'm doing this talk. The game is at the lobby, and I'm finishing in the summer and forgetting it exists. Starting a new game. So I wrote a paper a while ago, First Person Scholar. It's available online, about subversive joke. It makes a lot of jokes. It talks a lot about Monty Python and why Goat Simulator is a really great game. So my name is Yifat, and I am here to tell you how I use subversive humor to make a game about the mundanity of service in the army. So this is where I grew up. It's hard to see. It's this place you never heard about. It's not like war there every 2 years or so. So this is Jerusalem. So this is where I grew up. So Jerusalem is very different from what people think it is. To the point where we have our own special mental illness for people who come to Jerusalem and find out it's not what they expect it to be, and they start thinking they're Jesus. Google, it's called Jerusalem Syndrome. It's great. I met Jesus a few times already. Also met Jeremiah. So at the age of 18, I served 2 years in the Israeli army. It's mandatory. I'm sorry, all my army pictures at my parents' house. So I used my Master of Design degree to do a quick Photoshop job. I did not look like that when I was 18. So I served in the army. I fixed computers in the army. I went home every day. I am 5'2". I am not a particularly gentle person. Can certainly not in a fight cannot do much against anyone. But there's a certain thing that people think when I served in the army. I certainly did not have a gun. So I now live in Canada. I said a few really stupid jokes. This is for Kim. So I live in Canada. I moved to Toronto 5 years ago, and the first thing when I moved to Toronto, the first thing one of my best friend said was like, "So you've been in the army, so you know Krav Maga, right? You're really tough." And I'm like, no. And they were like, also, "Oh, you're like Mossad or something." No. And so I found out that people, I realized my life experience is very different, and people see my experience completely different than it really was. And so I started talking about people about my army experience. So let's start talking a little bit about subversive humor before. So let's introduce myself again. My name is Yifat, and I'm here to advocate in behalf of the ridiculousness. And so let's talk about humor, and especially let's talk about humor as an important tool and why games are not funny. So where is the Monty Python of games? Hint, it's Goat Simulator. If you read my paper, you'll know why. So subversive is secretly trying to ruin or destroy a government. Subversive humor is secretly trying to ruin or destroy a government, political system, etc. Or criticizing something in a clever and indirect way in order to make it weaker and less effective. And that's when we talk about humor. That's what subversive humor does. It weakens the group that we criticize. So in the simplest terms, subversive humor is humor which criticizes powerful dogma, concept, or institution. Subversive humor often functions as a tool to express frustration, dissident, and to ultimately challenge existing power relations and conventions. It's a powerful tool. And it's a powerful tool we do not use because we have an idea about humor being shallow or humor being not as good as drama. Humor is a powerful tool. And I'll explain why. So why subversive humor? Again, humor is approachable. It can disarm critics by cutting through the clutter of noise around an issue that makes people feel uncomfortable. It often used in a way to ridicule the oppressor by creating a dilemma they can't win. So they can either fight you, no matter what they do, either they fight you or they ignore you, they become ridiculous, they appear ridiculous. It melts fear. When you ridicule someone or something, you no longer fear them. It serves as a coping mechanism or stress relief by highlighting and expressing frustration with the problems. And it has the ability to take away the power of the oppressor, making it a powerful tool that should be considered in any creative critical process. So subversive humor and culture, I'll go really quickly about that. But there's a few ways subversive humor appears in our culture. I won't go into all of them because not all of them are relevant for what we want to talk about. But the first one, and probably the most familiar to all of you, is quote-unquote ethnic humor, which is the worst term ever. But it's jokes or humor that is told by a member of a specific group. In this case, it can be queer, Jewish jokes. I'm Jewish, so. African American, any group that is oppressed by a larger group. It is, and it's a group that is, it's a joke and a humor that exists among this group, ridiculing what the oppressor thinks about them, and also by using the stereotype about them. So, for example, as a Jew, you have the Jewish humor, Mel Brooks. He makes fun of what the white Christian thought about Jews, but while also making us as Jews more approachable. Now, it has its issues. We won't get into it too much, but it's very easy for it to perpetuate stereotype against that group. AKA, I do not eat gefilte fish. Thank you. It's something that appears also in queer circles, in some form or another, and obviously in other ethnic groups. Another type of humor is subversive humor that appears in activism. This is the clown army. So this is where I come into subversive humor, where activists use humor to expose contradiction and hypocrisy in their society. If you look at stuff from the Egyptian Revolution, cartoons from the Egyptian Revolution, and how they were mobilized against Mubarak. If you look at the stuff that's coming out from Turkey, and even this is in England, but I encountered the clown army in Israel and Palestine. It's not harmonious. It's a humor that basically is taking two stuff that have no connection and putting them together, and that's where the humor comes. So, for example, if you put an octopus in an office situation, you got incongruity. And when we talk about subversive humor, specifically in game, we talk about this. So why games are not funny? There are funny games, but it's not a common thing. And even games, and even less subversive humor. If we want to talk about games that are funny, obviously I joked about all the weird physics stuff like Goat Simulator, Octodad. My mind doesn't work for a second. Many other games. which I remember in a second. But games in general, obviously also games from the 90s, all the parody games. But general games are not funny, and the reason why are very simple. Designing humor for game can be quite difficult because concepts like comedic timing can really be anticipated in games. As a designer, we do not know where our players will decide to go, and so it's really hard for us to anticipate stuff like timing. It will require us a new way of integrating humor into game. The Stanley Parable, sorry, now I remember, which to gain relative newness as a field becomes really hard. The repetitive nature of game make jokes really stale. And that's the problem. If any of you played like Monkey Island and stuff like that, they become not so funny after the first game. You might not find it funny the first time, but and there's also the video game tendency for big heroic stories about victory, triumph, and overcoming the odds that don't lend themselves seamlessly to comedy. And so there's a few ways that games who have managed to do humoristic thing use humor. So there's the using text and visual. This is something like Monkey Island would do. You have an actual text. I don't know if any of you played some of Douglas Adams' games, text adventure games. That's what he did. He uses text, it uses visuals to tell a story, to tell the joke. And using game interaction. So this is the more sophisticated use of game. This is something that appears more and more. So that's what something like the Stanley Parable does. This is something like Goat Simulator does. This is something a few other games do, where the interaction itself becomes funny. And it uses the unpredictability of game to make it even funnier. And then there's the all-rounder. They don't exist yet. Some suggested Undertale, but possibly, but they don't really exist. What you see more today is the using game interaction to make a game funny. And this is, for me, the more sophisticated way of using humor in game. Okay, so let's go back to the game. So, real-life absurdity and the creation of real army simulator. So, going back to my introduction, sorry. In 2001 until 2004, I spent 2 years doing my mandatory army service. I fixed computers in the army. I went home every day. I used the gun once. It was an Uzi. And I spent about a year and 9 months just trying to survive and get it over with. Not that it was necessarily bad. I will even argue in a way it prepared me a lot more for reality than university ever had. But it just wasn't particularly exciting. And it's not that it was in a vacuum, especially since it's the Israeli army, so you really want to think about, did I do anything that is more complex than that? But literally, I fixed computers. That's what I did. I was in the computer help desk of the Israeli army. I have a top secret ranking in the army, but that's not because I've done anything of importance. It's because once you do computers, you have to do that. Other people had other experience, but so I have friends who have been fighters and stuff like that. But the idea of the mundanity appears in all of them. If you're a fighter in the army, if you're like in a fighting unit, 90% of the time you do is guard duty. Even in the Israeli army, who actually goes to wars. The other, a little bit of percentage is actually going to war. And I can assure you, most soldiers do not want to go there. They want maybe before they go to the army. They do not want after. And so, the army involves a lot of waiting. It also involves a lot of paperwork. And doing a lot of useless things because it helps keeps everything and everyone in order. So, the army is a large and slow corporate machine. And people here don't understand that. We have this very romantic view, even if we're dirty leftists, about what an army does and what does not. You do not think about the paperwork when playing Call of Duty. We constantly or subconsciously accept the representation movies and video games have of army and warfare. We do not see and if we do talk about stuff like post-traumatic stress disorder, it still doesn't go into the what it's really like, the experience. And so when we talk about army in the West, we talk about how its similarity and how it presented in our popular culture. So this literally came out like when I was working on the game, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. I've never laughed so much on a title as it is. And I have a lot to say about it. We won't get to it because my time is short. But in reality, this is what we want to think an army is. In reality, this is an army. If any of you seen Blackadder, if not, like, freaking, it's on Netflix, go watch Blackadder, thank you. Especially season 4. Because season 4 is very much a representation. These things happen where you try to get out of the army by acting weirdly. This is a common thing. Comedy likes to highlight the absurd in reality. And comedy tends to get a lot of those stuff right. This is another movie. This is I think it was called Zero something. It's an Israeli movie about female soldiers in the army. And like there was this one girl's job was like filing paperwork, and another one was in charge of shredding paper. This is far more common than Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And so I decided to make, after all this talk about the army by my friend, I decided to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to show you what my army experience is. I'm going to make the most boring game. I'm going to make a game where you have to fix computers and you have to survive the day. And so I did. So how do you make a boring game about the army but make people still enjoy it? And how can you make players get what I'm trying to do? And so I tried to make the game funny. And it's not designed. The writing is not necessarily funny. If any of you played it, the writing is still like just the situation. But if you go and do the experience more and more, it sounds more and more ridiculous. Why the hell are you doing those stuff? And that's where the subversive come to play. It came organically because the situation we described are really absurd and the interaction were ridiculous. And everything we did in the game, every choice was made to subvert the idea of the army. The game is very, very pink and very, very soft. And if you go there, I always put it on this bright pink map, a bright pink table, and it's everything is meant to say, this is really not what you think it is. You are not an individual, and the situation you are in are not particularly interesting. And so, the name of the game was also chosen because of as a subversive thing. The game is called Real Army Simulator. And it's not that it's the only real army simulation experience, it's not just that this is what the real army is like, but it's mostly making fun of what we think an army is like. Okay, I need to finish, so I'm just gonna put this. My name is Yifat. Follow me on Twitter. You can download the game as it stands right now. And also, please submit your game to Toronto Different Game. Okay. Woo! Take a picture and submit.
Let's get over Yifat again.